So we're going to get going on a little bit deeper dive into relays and ultras. And so just to continue the theme of what we've been talking about regularly in regards to an efficient race day process, I'm going to go into the pre-race side, which you guys have heard a good bit about. You've probably seen some of the same images and things like that. There are some things to remember, like must-dos in regards to if you're going to use some of these tools. And then I'm going to pass it over to James, who's going to go over RaceJoy, which, in my opinion, for relays and ultras. And when we're talking about relays, just so you know, in this presentation, we're talking about like your 200-mile or 70-mile running relays specifically. So, in my opinion, I think that's where RaceJoy just goes through the roof. It's awesome. And spectators love it. So for RaceDay registration with relays, Expo mode is the only method of kiosk-based or on-site-based registration that you can offer. If you're going to do the sign-up app, it does not support teams. If you're going to do kiosk mode, it does not support teams. So if you're registering the relay as a single unit and you don't care about the other individuals, then you can use the others. But if you do want all those waivers signed by all the people, if you do want them to register as an actual team and not just call the event a team and have a one-unit registration, then you will need to use Expo mode. So it does allow for offline payments, cash and check. And again, I think at this point, you guys understand how. And if you don't know how this works, like again, just to reiterate what Shelly said, make your way down to the demo room at some point and check that out. So in order to turn this on, you're going to be going into RaceDay registration, Expo mode, and then right here, enable private Expo mode. So you'll have two different passwords. One is your Expo mode, like to get into Expo mode password, and the other is the offline payment password. So for those, the Expo, I mean, you can, if you're planning on doing this on site 6 months from now, and again, some of you have probably heard me say this already, you can turn this on now. There's no harm in turning this on now. Someone has to know this specific URL, and this is your Expo mode URL. So they have to know that URL to get there, and then they have to have a password to get in, and then in order for them not to pay, they would have to know your offline payment password. So for those of you saying, oh, I don't need to turn this on yet, like test things. Like you don't understand how many calls that we get on like Friday morning saying fill in the blank thing is not working. When is your race? Well, we're at packet pickup. Did you test? Huh? Not the response we were looking for, but so test it out. Like if you're, especially for most of your relays and ultras, they're higher priced events, right? It's not a $50 entry fee for most of these. You're looking at potentially, I mean, I know on average, usually it's like $500 to $1,500 for a relay for these longer distance relays. Ultras aren't, the ultra events like trail running and whatnot are obviously individually entered, but your relays are not. They're usually fairly expensive. So test them out and make sure you're getting what you want. The other side of it is, so you can use fast registration mode, which we've talked about before in regards to getting all that set up. For those of you that don't remember or it's not sticking as to where fast registration mode is, I quite literally tell people this cool little feature, the menu search bar. There's too many things on RunSignup to remember where things are. Like if you remember where everything is, you're amazing. I don't think all of our AMs remember where things are. That search bar right there is fantastic. The keyword to find fast registration is FAST. Type in fast registration is the only option there. And you can turn on and off whatever you need. So in terms of the RaceDay Bib Management, there are, and I want to be clear on this because I understand for those of you that are timers that not all timing systems want things the same way. If you're a race director user, you may or may not use groups or teams bib numbers. Like how many people are using race director in here? All right. And I think the other juggernaut is going to be RunScore. How many of you guys are using RunScore? So, okay. I usually we say about 50-50, but you guys are the minority. So run score, as we know, for those of you guys that seem to be in the middle, usually likes for relays to be one record. I know several of you, if you, I know at least two, if not more of the run score users in here, know how to get the way that we do it into that one record scenario. So if you are having issues with that, I'm not the person to talk to. James is not the person to talk to. I know for a fact Jenna knows. I know for a fact RaceDay Events knows, because I've called both of them saying, somebody's asking me, I don't know how to push the buttons in run score, so will you tell me, or can I give you their number or what have you? So great resources if you need that. For you Race Director users, different story altogether. So if you are going to set up bib management for a team, and this is where you go into bibs and assign bibs and then go down to group team setup. And by doing this, you can set up your auto assignment. There's kind of several schools of thought here. Matt Avery doesn't like to use auto assignment. I sometimes do. It's kind of your preference in regards to how you want to assign group teams bibs. A lot of folks import the bibs. Auto assignment is an option. So in importing, you're quite literally doing the import bibs and chips, and you can import those in. So if using auto assignment, you can see, I don't know if you guys can read this, but the 5K event versus the relay people have a group bib number, everyone else has a regular bib number. The individuals have a regular bib number. And so again, if you're the race director, are any of you race directors and not timers? So before you pull the trigger on stuff like this, talk to your timer, because like this is super important, because just because you want that team to be bib number, fill in the blank, whatever, it doesn't mean that their scoring platform is going to work correctly with the way you want to assign it. So just coordinate with them and make sure that that's good. Yeah, you've heard most of our talks. So again, just keep in mind, not all scoring platforms use the bib numbers the same way. So in some scenarios, you need one record with one bib number, and group bib number might not be that. But with Race Director, depending on how you score, RaceDay scoring, depending on how you score, you can use group bib numbers, and it's super helpful. So with RaceDay Checkin, this was a lot smaller yesterday when I went through it, but there are some pretty cool settings if you are going to use group bib numbers. I'll be going through very, very similar things with the triathlon side of things in the next talk. So the biggest thing is, if you have two different events, you can have two different presets. So by going into your, how many of you are using the Checkin? Okay, half. Are the rest of you interested? Is this something that you guys are planning on doing? Yes? Okay. So once you get in, a lot of people just think you go into your Checkin app and it just works, right? You turn it on in RunSignup, and I mean, it does just work, but not all the settings are the way you need them to be, especially if you're using group team or group bib numbers. So you need to go in and add a preset. I usually don't suggest editing the default, because you have no clue if you actually edited it by just looking at the word default. It's not going to remind you that you did work. This shows me I actually did something. And so you go in, and by setting all this up, and then once, I guess I have it on the next slide, once you get done editing, the upload configuration is what you use to actually push that up to the cloud so you can scale to other devices. So you call this relay, and again, like this is the assumption that you're not using bib number, and instead you're using group bib number. So on the app itself, we're skipping the bib number, and we're requiring the group bib number. In most of these scenarios for groups and teams, again, like it's usually a big enough group that you dynamically assigning for like a long distance relay is not your best bet. You know, like I would go ahead and pre-assign those. Most people have cutoff times like a week before the event or something like that, just because there's so many safety issues or factors that you're working with. So again, requiring this, you're going to require the waiver. Again, you have the option to have them sign the waiver on the phone, and that snapshots onto their user or their registration. And so if ever you need to confirm that they signed the waiver, you actually have a snapshot of what they did, the IP address, the timestamp, all that. It's like super fantastic. Again, you're going to want, these are normally off. By turning group bib number and group name on, you can search by the group name, right? So team whatever is now a searchable field. Age and gender don't matter as much for relays, but you can leave them on, leave them off, doesn't matter. And again, using group name during check-in, that's something, again, so you can actually physically like search for those folks within the check-in app. And I think that takes us to RaceDay. Are there any questions James can set up about that? I know this part's way more interesting for long-distance relays.
Again, this is an advanced session. I'm really going to dive into using RaceDay for relays and ultra events. So if you haven't used RaceDay, go to one of the sessions, learn about it. I'm not going to go into all that today. So really, the first thing I want to cover is like, what do you need to do as people setting up maps, certified timers and our race directors? What do you need to do for your mapping and how the mapping needs to be done? So again, what we're doing with RaceDay is we're tracking phones, whether or not it's an individual solo runner running the 100-miler or a relay team of 8 people running a 100-miler. You're basically setting up a path that they're all going to run, and we're going to have different exchange points, different checkpoints, different transitions. So again, I'm going to cover what's needs to be done on the mapping side here. So when you construct the map, a lot of you keep these assets out there where you're keeping all your assets as each individual leg. Like you got the leg, and you got 24 legs, you got 24 segments out there. Coming very soon, I would say probably within 2-3 months, we're going to give you a tool on our map builder where we'll pull those segments together for you and create that one contiguous path. But for now, you need to create one contiguous path. There's a lot of great tools out there. We use Google Earth. You need to combine all those segments into one contiguous path because you're building one path for the map that we're doing. When it comes to progress alerts, our default configuration, when we start getting anything over a marathon, start getting to 50 miles, 100 miles definitely, we start moving into progress alerts every 5 miles. It's just a lot of information for somebody to be every mile getting alerts and stuff. So when I show you, I'm going to go through configuration here in a minute. You really want to set your progress alerts to be probably every 5 miles, especially when you get into like 75, 100-mile events. Keep the audio pace alerts on setting. That needs to be on because, again, as an individual runner, I want to know what my last foot is. I want to get that constant performance feedback. So you want to keep that setting on. Very important. When you're enabling RaceDay for events, like where you have a solo 100 and you also have a relay, you need to give us 2 enablements. Okay, it's the same path, and you can just load it in. But why do we need 2 different enablements? Does anybody know the answer to that? The reason why is in a second I'm going to show you. You're basically for the relay course, you're setting up your legs. If I'm a 100-mile solo runner, I don't have to care about my different legs. I'm running whole 100 miles. If I'm on an 8-person relay team running that 100 miles, I need to have leg management. I'll show you in a second. So as a race director or timer, you're setting up where those exchange points are and what those legs are going to be called for the events. That's 2 different courses. I got the solo and I got the relay. So let's look at some examples. This event's happening next week. We pulled in Burning River. They've been with us for a number of years. So you can see here he has both a 100-mile solo event, and he also has an 8-person relay, and they run all through Ohio and so forth. Let's take a look at their map. So on the solo course, you see, basically they're going up and down. They do a 50 up and a 50 back. They used to do a point-to-point 100, but this year he's changed the course to make it a little bit easier for logistics to up and back. Don't see any exchange points. We just see a lot of miles going along and so forth. And so we can load it up with a contiguous path, and then we turn around and come back. When we look at the timing configuration that we load in, again, we see those checkpoints. So again, even though he set up all these aid stations and checkpoints that are very important for the relay, you can have those in the solo course. So you can copy the same course over. So it's great because the solo runner is going to hit Memorial 423. They know they've hit that transition, that checkpoint. That alert went out to friends and family. So that same configuration can be used for both the solo and the relay course. But what's different is you don't see that I have not turned on any exchange points. I don't have any leg names in the solo course. Okay? Same configuration though. I want my progress alerts to go out every 5 miles. I want my alerts to go out on every exchange point, every transition, and I have audio pace on for everything. So that's a very good solo 100-mile course configuration. That's how it looks. If I move over to the relay course, he has an 8-person relay. He also has a 4-person relay. The only difference is now we have to design out at what checkpoints, at what transitions, where do we actually have bands of people in transition. So he turns it on at certain points we have legs and so forth. You can configure those. We have some races they like to not say leg 1, leg 2 in the app. They want to call it something else. That's configurable right there. You can call your legs whatever you want. You can configure that right in your time configuration. You turn on what points are your exchanges. And then this is where, if you go and look at the map, you can see that he's actually put the icons. He's added the markers, and we have this nice relay icon. And this particular checkpoint transition, it could have been called Exchange 1. It could have been called Exchange 2. He chose not to use the word exchange. He actually has these named parts that he uses. So he's got these names in here, and he's configured that with those markers. So the difference between the solo 100-miler and the relay, it's really that. You're giving us one contiguous path, you're telling us where those transition points are, and for the relay course, you turn on where the actual exchanges are and you give us the name of those. The other thing you'll see on the configuration up here is, the other thing you need to do, look at course info, is, you'll see this type, so this is relay versus standard. So that's all you have to do on the back end to make this magic work on how we're going to tie all these phones together and get these progress alerts to work across different phones and give team progress. And I'll be showing that just an experience in a second. But from a back end perspective, give us the path, tell us where the exchange points are, and set up configuration. So for relay, the only difference is set your exchanges, make sure they're on progress alert on, keep the audio base on. A lot of times, timers forget to turn those on for the progress board. For those that have used our monitoring system, we have a really nice monitoring system where you can see all your relays and when they hit different points. You definitely want to have your key exchanges on that, so make sure the progress board is on for those. And then you just need to add that additional attribute exchange point and give it the leg in. This last point is missed so much in our reviews when people are doing maps. What's the last leg? Where does the last leg end? Finish, right? Make sure you turn the finish on as the last exchange point because that's the finish. So that's our last leg of the relay. If you're doing ultra, basically following what I said, every 5 miles is good. Some distance things here. This comes up a lot. Some things to think about when we're doing these ultra events. A lot of ultra events will go to areas where there's poor cell service on some part of that 100 miles or that 75. We're going through often trail areas or very rural areas. So if you know that there's an area where an exchange happens where there's no cell service, you need to communicate to your participants that they need to have RaceDay on their phone loaded before they go in that area. Everything will work because it's based on GPS. As long as they've got all the data and all that path and everything loaded on their phone, they'll still be able to circulate. They're still going to get their audio pace alerts and everything. It's just the data will come to you later when that phone comes back into service and the progress alerts will come. Something to think about, especially in these ultra relays. If you have an area with no cell service, you need to communicate with your participants. They need to have RaceDay loaded on their phone before they move out onto that course. And make sure the exchange points line up. I mean, we got satellite view. Just go on the map, hit satellite view. Just make sure the exchange points are really where they're going to happen. It's nothing more frustrating as an athlete. I'm running along, I've done my leg, and I don't get my time. And because you put the point way down the road, and they finished here, and they got in the van, and they never got to finish. Because again, remember, we're measuring proximity to a point that we're trying to get to. So it's very important to try to get those exchange points where they actually transition. So before I show questions today, I'm going to move on. I just want to kind of go back to this participant side of this. For those that haven't used RaceDay Relay, we've done a lot of work over the last 2 or 3 years. We have big companies like Ragnar starting to use us. We have Pentecost here using us. So really what we're doing here is we're tying phones together, which is difficult from a timing perspective, given this type of experience. They're self-managing their team. They're able, like, I'm not feeling good. And it's really hard to tell a timer that I'm not really doing leg 4, I'm doing leg 10, right? You know, so they're self-managing themselves. They're choosing which leg they're going to do, and they're able to set up their own team on their phone. They're getting their individual leg stats, what they want. They're getting team progress, so those team progress alerts go out to all the friends and family, and it's based on the team, not the individual. So you're able to get, you know, when's the team estimated to finish? They're estimated to finish in 11 hours, 16 minutes. What's the current team pace? Our team pace is 5 minutes, so it's a really nice thing that goes out to everybody. They can see it right on the dashboard. This is the dashboard right on the phone. They can see how the team's progressing. They can see how each leg has done of the relay. Again, very nice feature for them. And again, most importantly, they're sitting in the van. They have no information. They want to know when that relay person's done. So you're giving them a live map view. They can prepare, plan, and so that team is going to be much more efficient. A lot less wasted time in terms of transition, so they're going to actually have much better performance. So you're giving them really great performance tools. And then most importantly, they can track their competition, right? That's even more fun for them. So it becomes a very social thing. They can see where their competition is on the map, and they're spending so many hours in the vans and or things. You're giving them a lot of fun to do while they're sitting in the van. So definitely something you want to think about adding if you have anything that's sort of ultra or relay distance. And again, we've done a lot of work for store and forward, for cell area, and getting that information up to you when the cell comes back working for that phone.
Can they change your legs on the fly?
Absolutely. Right on that screen, I just changed my legs. John Ben says I'm not starting. Chad says he is. They just flip it right there. They override.
Clearly, each participant has to hit the start button when they go. Two questions. One, if a finishing participant forgets to end their segment, does that in any way affect the next person?
It's great. So it's really important to understand every single person on that team is an individual. Some people are going to be like, no way am I running with a phone. I'm unplugged. This is my time to be in nature, right? And then the other people are like, I want to know like exactly what my time was, right? So you've got all these individuals. The way our technology works is it's really advancing your team based upon the next person hitting start. So if I had nobody do the last 3 legs and I start leg 5, I'd now move my team up to leg 5, and the whole team is now moved up to that point. Now, you're putting a lot of power into the hands. Like if somebody screws up and advances their team wrong, we give them, and I'm not showing you on the screen, this manage area, there's a 4th tab on here where the team captain can come in and kind of like, no, reset the team. We're really back on leg 3. So again, the team's self-managing in terms of like, we're not really that far if somebody inadvertently moves the team forward by starting leg 3.
So you're assigning a time then to the leg that you didn't actually have anything for, just based on whatever the start time is.
Exactly. It's all based on catching them to the next point.
So then when you have a relay race where one segment is out of cell phone service,
Yep.
So let's say the 3rd segment doesn't have service when they do their whole course, but then the 4th leg starts and we pick them up at some point. Whenever they're along the way, you're going to go back and automatically update the finish time for the prior leg, even though we never actually saw any data from that.
It's one step better than that. If that person that was doing leg 3 that had no cell service used RaceDay, again, it's all resident. This has got the whole map on it. It's got everything. And if they use RaceDay, at some point they're going to get in the van, they're going to move down the road, and they're going to use all that data gets forwarded up to us. So you will, on your progress board, you will actually see the actual stats for that leg later.
So you'll do a temporary update, but then you'll allow it to auto-override.
Exactly. That's how it works. So it's called Store and Forward. And once that phone comes back in, those updates will come in, and you'll go on your map and you'll see the passings when they hit exchange 3 and when that team hit that point.
And because this is all GPS based and not based on any sort of algorithms whatsoever, it really doesn't matter if they're biking, kayaking, or running, or all of the above.
Exactly. And we also support manual. For those that don't want to carry the phone again, they just arrive at a checkpoint, they can do a manual check-in. We have some events where from the safety protocol, they told the teams, you must check in We have to have that information, so they can just go on their phone and check in at points.
Let's check in. You're saying you always have to have the participants.
No, there's a manage area where they can just go in and manually say, we are at checkpoint Charlie, and this is when we arrive.
It does have estimated time, because I've run 50 codes several times, and our biggest issue as a relay member is knowing when that person's coming in, so that outgoing member is
It
ready
shows
to
an
go.
estimated time to finish that leg, and that's what you see on the leg stats window. Yeah.
Can we force check-in from a timing point?
Yeah, so this is the hottest request that I've been getting from these long ultra relays is that they want on their system the ability to go on the monitoring area and do volunteers checking people in. So we'll be having that shortly.
And even while it was that, even automatically, so we get a chip read. So if they had a chip or
So time, as Bob said this morning, this world of RFID and GPS, we believe is really the future. And over the next few years, I think you're going to see more and more of this stuff coming together. So systems getting both data streams and letting you do things as timers. Again, that's why RaceDay. Again, if you get any one message out of this symposium, especially today, this is the one message. RaceDay is a timer tool. We want timers and the people that do the technology for races to use this as a tool, just like you do with RFID. And so really, our whole distribution has changed. We wanted to make this something that timers are using and making available. And so that's where you'll start seeing the two data streams coming together, and you guys will be using this two data to kind of handle all these use cases like you just said. Like the use case that came up this morning was I have a misread. Just make it easy for me to see what the GPS read was so I can decide if I'm going to use it or not.
Or anything that's taking platform outside of just the phone.
Yeah. So I've done all the work with Spot. I actually have a Spot tracker myself right now. I do a lot of stuff that only has satellite, and RaceDay works with Spot trackers right now. We worked with a company that was actually going to buy a whole inventory of them. He couldn't quite get the economics to work. So if, as a company, you have the economics to figure out some device that you want to hand out, RaceDay is a platform for you to give people on their phones and on the web to track those devices. It's always
reach or something like that we can use.
Yeah, it's just about economics and whether or not you can have an inventory of devices. We're never going to be in the business of having inventory devices. I've worked with several companies that have tried that model. It's just trying to figure it out. And we do develop it real easy. I've done the integration. It's so easy. We're ready to do that. It's just a matter of a company having the money to buy an inventory.
Every company I've worked with in the U.S. is pretty much gone. And Yellow Brick is pretty much the vast only one left in there for real true satellite GPS communication. And it's expensive. It's like
Mainly for sailing.
we'll use it for adventure racing. 5 minutes at a 5-minute ping.
Yep.
With a satellite device, we're paying like $65 a device for a weekend race.
Yeah, that's definitely what you get. And you won't get progress alerts. You're not going to get all the bells and whistles that you get with a phone because, again, these devices are not computers. You're not going to be able to do audio and all that stuff. But you can definitely track
See them on a map.
Exactly. Good question.
Just a simple little setting going, plop in the code.
Exactly.
So in the interest of time, we're going to pivot over to the triathlon side.